The scripture this morning comes from the book of Matthew. We're reading from the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 11. Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up a mountain. He sat down, and his disciples came to him. He taught them, saying, "Happy are people who are hopeless, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are people who grieve, because they will be made glad. Happy are people who are humble, because they will inherit the earth. Happy are people who are hungry and thirsty for righteousness, because they will be fed until they are full. Happy are people who show mercy, because they will receive mercy. Happy are people who have pure hearts, because they will see God. Happy are people who make peace, because they will be called God's children. Happy are people whose lives are harassed, because they are righteous, because the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Happy are you when people insult you and harass you and speak all kinds of bad and false things about you, all because of me." This has been the word of God for us, the people of God.
Thank you, Jeff. I'd ask the youth to come up and just stand awkwardly here facing the congregation, youth and adults. While they are coming up, I'm going to ask you something to do that is rarely done in this church. In front of you is likely a Bible, at least for those of you that are not in the front row. If you could pull out your Bible and then please go to Matthew 5, the first verse. And what I will also say is, by the way, I don't know what's great for the camera people. I'll just stand over here. And what I'll also say, if you don't know where Matthew is, this is what I always tell them, the most important page in the Bible is the table of contents. So find that. Matthew 5, or of course we have our fabulous phones with us as well. All right, so what I would like to do, this is going to be a pretty non-traditional sermon. Some of you guys that have been at Advent for a while have seen us do this. I'm going to give a quick explanation as to what we did on the mission trip. I'm then going to be, some of the youth are going to be talking about their experiences and answering basically 3 questions. And then I'm going to sort of see what I can do about putting some other stuff together. And we should be done by about 4 o'clock, which is fine because we have AC here, so it's good. It's good to be here. So in the background, by the way, there's just going to be slides going through, and if you get bored of me, you can just look at the slides. All right, so here's the deal. So first of all, last week, all of us, and there's 19 of us, there's 6 adults and 13 youth, ranging from about 14 to 17. And we all went to Puerto Rico, spent most of our time in Arecibo. We partnered with YouthWorks, which is an organization I've done ministry with for pretty well since I've been here. One of the reasons I really appreciate YouthWorks is that they do have actually pretty deep theology and pretty inclusive theology, and that's very important for me with the youth that we have. Our housing site was actually in a Methodist church, so props for us. I will say, though, the interesting thing about that church, they have their own Pastor Eric. That's kind of neat. They have their own Pastor Eric, but here's the thing. I will not read the Spanish part because, as the youth have all learned, I have nothing for that. But they have sort of a subtitle. So they have, actually I think it's simply called Methodist Church is the title, and then they have something called, a subtitle called The Rebirth, and then underneath, in quotes, the church that refused to die. And that, for me, caught me because Puerto Rico's population itself is in decline, right? They've lost something about a quarter of their population. And who they're losing are the younger people. So this church felt that they were dying, and then they took it upon themselves, the laity of that church took it upon themselves to see what can we do to not die, basically. They felt that God's work was not finished there. And their Pastor Eric, we're going to have 3 Erics, so you have to context here. But anyway, their Pastor Eric came in, and through a bunch of, honestly, I would say through a bunch of prayer and through a bunch of, timings, it's now really becoming a very vibrant church. and we were very, very fortunate. The rooms that we actually slept in had just been finished 2 weeks before, right? So I'm very impressed with them. The other thing I'm going to say, I actually came right off of the conference for that. So you'll have another 50-minute sermon about what happened at conference. That's this afternoon. No, it's not. Don't worry about it. But the point is, I got stuff I want to talk about there too. But I came out there pretty supercharged, and then I come into this experience, and it was just wonderful to see what God is actually doing out in Puerto Rico and within us. This was last year. I said that the mission trip was like one of the top 3 of about 25 of the hardest trips I've ever done. And I said that was all for the wrong reasons. This trip was one of the top 3 of the hardest ones, but it was all for the right reasons. It was really quite a spectacular experience. So we went to 4 places. We went to a place called the Dream Center, which is it serves as a resource center focused on providing support for those affected by homelessness, hunger, and lack of education through residential and community outreach programs. We also helped assist a church, Episcopal San Pablo. It's an Episcopal church, and it hosts a Bible-based summer camp for kids and organizes other community outreach initiatives. It also, by the way, is building its own version of, I think, is it Claire's Closet? The ministry just down the road. So what? Caitlin's, thank you, Caitlin's Closet. So they have their own version of Caitlin's Closet going on. I also, by the way, met a real live deacon there. I was really excited about that. And then some of them went to Boys and Girls Club, which is just like Boys and Girls Clubs here. It's meant to develop children between the ages of 16 and 18 in areas of education, leadership, sports, and others. And then we went to Centro de Apoyo Mutuo.
Centro de Apoyo.
Close enough for me? I was way more respectful out there, just for the record, okay? But anyway, and that's a small nonprofit located in the church, in a town whose main goals were to support the community leaders in their efforts to rebuild and redevelop their communities. Any idea what a lot of them are rebuilding from? Maria, right? Hurricane Maria. So I don't know if this is going to come up, and I hope I don't ruin any of this stuff, but we drove through some really like apocalyptic looking areas. And the thing, after I was talking, I took the trouble, and I'm sure a lot of them did too, actually not trouble, the real joy of leaning into some of the Puerto Ricans that we were with and asking them questions. And some of these areas that we drove through that looked basically effectively blown up, they were the wreckage left behind by Maria, and they are not getting any kind of support to rebuild them. So of course, all these empty, destroyed buildings are just are left. So anyway. Okay, with that, this organization is meant to help rebuild towns from all of that. And of course, they got farming and stuff too. So now, that's enough of me. Max, I'm going to turn this on. You're up. I'm going to ask you the questions. You get to answer the questions. Max, what did you do in Puerto Rico?
Well, so we were at, first we were at the church, what's it called again?
It was Episcopal San Pablo.
Yeah, we were at that church for the first, 2 days. And then the next 2 days we were at Dream Center. And I just wanted to talk about like Dream Center and like what they did. So it was run by Danielle and his wife Yiliana, 2 like really great people. And we were there for 2 days. And on the first day, we helped out kids in like this summer camp. It was really fun. They were like bouncing off the walls and everything. It was really fun to be there. And then the second day, we went door to door and we gave first aid kits to all these people who really needed it. So that was really special. And then the second day we were there, we packed Chick-fil-A meals for the homelessness. And then we split up into 2 groups. One group went out and served the elderly and spent time with them. And then the other group delivered the food that we packed up that morning to the homelessness. So yeah.
Where did you see God?
I saw God probably in the homelessness and the people who needed like the stuff. And when we were praying, it was like really special because like, because I just like saw God like through them, and I was like, boy, like I really hope like they get better, and I really hope God heals and strengthens them.
And before I get to your favorite memory, what's key here is that when Max was saying about when we were praying, the prayers were very personal, and they were very usually over the actual person that we were praying for. So it was very, like I think in one case, Max, we were in someone's apartment, I believe, right?
Multiple times.
And multiple times. And so when he's talking about praying for the people, he's praying for and with the people. Also, by the way, we had translators for that as well. So I thought that was pretty impactful. Favorite memory?
Probably my favorite memory was, it was a specific prayer we did. There was this old guy, his name was Otilio, and we went in, and he's usually like a grumpy guy, so usually he's like not really nice, but this time he like accepted us in, and we were, and he wanted a prayer for like his family and his health, so I was praying, and like as I was praying like mid-prayer, he like told us to stop, which I thought was like kind of like interesting. And he told us to like all like link arms and like put a hand on him. So I thought that was really, really special.
Another thing about Tilio is that he was a person, reason he was grumpy is that he's a stroke survivor. So he went from being fully abled to overnight not being fully abled. And like a lot of us would be, he was really struggling with where is God in this? And that's kind of what was going on there. Was there someone, Finn, were you going to say anything?
You want to say anything, Finn?
No, I warned them before, so I'm not just jumping on people, but are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we split up on the second day into littler groups, and my group went to the elderly, and so we had a few meals, and we kind of just went in a truck, and we were going to these apartments and giving out food and praying for people, and we it was 3 youth and a leader, and it was a really special time for me personally to get to actually pray for people who needed it.
Nice. And when you saying apartments, the closest equivalent is projects. So we were basically in the projects of that town. All right. Unless there's anything else, I would like Naya then to. Assuming she can talk, this young lady blew out her voice 2 days ago, so we'll see how this goes. Go ahead, Naya.
I think I'll be okay for the most part.
Thank you.
So I was at the Boys and Girls Club for the first 2 days, and the thing that I liked the most about it, I think, was the fact that a lot of the kids were so willing to be involved, because it was basically like a school. It was a summer camp. But they moved around to different stations. It was based on age groups. And so we kind of stuck around with the same age group, and we walked around with them, and we really got to know them. And I think that was really special because, a lot of these kids, everything was running smoothly. Like if we wouldn't have been there, it would have been completely fine. But we were able to go in and help out the kids, and we were able to kind of communicate with them, even with the language barrier.
And where did you see God?
I saw God specifically on our first day because we were talking to some of the older kids. I think they were 11 through 13. And one of the boys didn't really want to talk to us. There was someone who was translating for us, and he had his headphones in, and we were talking to one of his friends. And then a few minutes later, I turned back. He has both his headphones out, and he is engaging in questions. He's asking us a bunch of really interesting questions, and he really was super engaged afterwards. And so I think the fact that at the beginning he wasn't really interested and then really got into it was definitely a big place in where I saw God.
And favorite memory?
I think my favorite memory was how much I think our group personally bonded, considering, I know most of these people really well, but as this trip, we were on a plane, we were in this smaller church, I think we definitely were able to grow closer to each other, and then we used that, and we also got closer to the community.
Awesome. Val, probably, Wyatt and Val, if I could ask you guys to talk about, say it again, Center.
Centro de Apoyo Mutuo.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wyatt. You're probably like, who is this guy? You don't know him. I don't go here. I go to Easter on the lake, but a lot of these people, I love them so much, so I go on the mission trips here. So if you're wondering who's the stranger in the shirt, that's me. So my group we started at Dream Center for the first 2 days. We cleaned up the beach and ran a hot dog stand, and then the second 2 days we helped this lady like do a bunch of yard work around her house, and then we went to this abandoned school that was originally seized by the government, and then this organization took it back, refurbished it. Now it's like a resource center for the community. So yeah.
Right, and before you go to the next question, and you think I'm just giving away their labor for free, when he says he's running a hot dog stand, what that means is that they went into the streets, and they basically gave out hot dogs. That's what that means. That's the first thing. And the other thing I wanted to say too about the schools, we saw a school that when they're abandoned, a lot of times they actually become like stables, like for horses. And the reason, because I was seeing, as I was walking around, I was seeing, you know, the presence of horses, if you know what I mean, on the ground. And I was thinking, why are there horses here? And there are horses there because the horses are used as vehicles of escape, right? So if someone's chasing them, because they're likely doing drug activity, then they run off on the horses. So that was an interesting thing every now and again to see that. Where did you see God, Wyatt?
I saw God at the abandoned school that we went to. There was this guy there, his name was Lionel, and he had this cart that he had constructed, and we took it up to the top of this hill, and we rode down, and just the pure joy in his face and in his just his expressions, that how we were enjoying this thing that he had made. It was super fun to see that.
Favorite memory?
My favorite memory is probably going to the beach. I really enjoyed that. You know, snorkeling in the water and seeing all that stuff was really cool.
Cool. Thank you, Wyatt. Thank you. Jack and Jonah, if you could talk about Episcopal San Pablo.
So the first 2 days, me, Max, and Finn, we were at the Episcopal Church with Ileana. And the fun all started when Grant was driving the van and tried to go through the gate. And he was like this close to hitting the gate, his second offense.
Yeah.
But we started by breaking these shelves that were surprisingly hard to break. And then we like cleaned out and painted like this storage room or closet thing. And I saw a lot of God in Ileana because she was so overjoyed with everything we did, like anything we did, like half a shelf taken out, and she was like jumping up and down. I don't know if she was loco or just full of joy, but we ended up moving a bunch of trash from one place to another, and then her husband would tell us to move it back. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up moving a bunch of doors and stuff back and forth, which was also pretty fun. But it was a great time to like just be able to serve and see Ileana and all the other people in our group helping out, and it was really fun to see that.
Before I ask favorite memory, I want to explain the trash thing. So Ileana and her husband, wonderful people, obviously pillars of that church, obviously. And that church is an older congregation. So any of the work that they were doing were likely work that could not be done by the people there. I mean, I know I'm probably older too, but it was a lot of effort for me to do some of that. And so any work that these youth had done was totally appreciated. I thought what was interesting, and it might have had some connection, is that Ileana would throw something out. The husband would look at that going, whoa, that's too expensive. We need that, and then would bring it back. And that was sort of explaining what was going on. I was there for one of those, and I thought, yeah, I wouldn't have thrown that out either. So anyway, and you know, she was super passionate about her church and what they were trying to do. So anyway, favorite memory?
My favorite memory was I didn't pack enough food one day for lunch. And we were sitting down in, thank God, a room with like 15 fans. And so it was pretty nice in there. But she and a couple other people from the congregation came out with some chicken and rice that was
Yeah.
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And kind of saved my day there, but
There's some kind of dish there, because actually it was at the airport too, and it's basically some kind of red rice with beans on it, and then chicken, and obviously a bunch of spices. And the first time I think we had it was probably there, and that was really, really, really quite special. All right, thank you. Oh, please, Jonah, go ahead.
Well, so we were rotating groups throughout the trip. So our group got to go the second day. So I was with Naya, Addie, Minerva, Pierce, Noah, me, Sean, Jean, Elena, and Addie. Okay, we had a big group. We went the second day, and they split us up, and we, Pierce, Noah, me, and Sean filled in potholes in the parking lot. So it was kind of fun. We had to dig up limestone and fill it in and pour water over it so it hardened. It was really fun. And then we went out to paint the front. As Grant touched on, most of their congregation is all elderly people, so they couldn't do it. So it was very nice to help out. And then the second day they were making a thrift store there. Like Grant was talking about how they were making a Caitlin's Closet type thing. And we painted the side of that, and that was fun. And yeah.
So you may as well go for it now. Where did you see God?
And Ileana, she was, there's a language barrier there. She didn't speak English, but her husband did, so her husband was translating everything for us. But she just came out, and she was so excited that we were helping out, and she was so joyful, and she was so thankful for us. She made us food every day, and it was really good. So
Favorite memory?
I really like snorkeling at the beach and seeing all of God's creation underwater, and all the fish and all the coral and just everything. So that was cool.
Great. Does anyone else want to say anything? Jean, go ahead, but you have to come up front. There you go.
I just want to say that, well, I love all these youth, but they said yes every single day.
Yep.
When they were tired, they said yes. When it was hard, they said yes. When they were asked to be in a group, maybe that wasn't what they were choosing at the moment, they said yes. They said yes to everything, to God, and help that community.
All right, yep, go ahead, Tom. Stay up for a second. All right, so obviously these trips don't just happen. So first of all, and by the way, you're going to get a little tiny sermon after this, so don't get too excited about this. But this is the thank you part. So I do want to basically ensure that I want to thank all the congregation for all the support, all the Pies with a Purpose, the car washes, all the stuff that we've done, and all the support, both just from those fundraisings and also just we are getting support through the church as well. So I really want to thank you for supporting the mission there. I definitely want to thank the parents for entrusting us with your youth. I sent several texts about this, but I just want all the parents and the congregation to understand, when they're going to apartments, when they're running hot dog stands and all that. One of the reasons I had so many leaders here is that we take safety very seriously. We take their physical, their mental, and their spiritual safety very seriously. And I got to say, thank you for entrusting us with them. And honestly, I was honored to spend time with all of these guys this week. I want to thank the staff because they have to deal with my shenanigans, of course, for at least leading up to this. The leaders for many of them are taking time off of work, and honestly, I depend on them for driving and the safety stuff I was talking about earlier, but especially things like emotional safety, spiritual safety. We had a really good team, and also, by the way, they get the classic, other duties as assigned, right? So whatever I need done, I typically send them out. And the youth, of course, I'll probably bring this up in a few minutes, but to what Jean said with the yes, this was truly an exceptional group. I'm not saying that previous groups, Lauren, were not as good. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that this group was an exceptional group because, as I said, this was very challenging for all the right reasons, and they really leaned in. So I was very proud of them. And a little bit of pastor's wife stuff happening here. I really appreciate Alona. Where do you want to do? Are you yours? There she is. She stepped in and was my unofficial admin assistant. And I really try hard not to let her do that because she truly, and I don't know whether Eric and Peggy have a similar deal, but I'm just saying, I don't she wasn't paid or anything, but she said, Grant, especially at the time, there's a lot of stuff going on. She says, can I help with this? Can I help with that? And I just gave her the keys and I said, just please, figure this out. Figure out how the planes are going to work. Figure out how we're going to get the seats. Figure out, how the cars are going to work. All of this in Puerto Rico. Figure out the hotels. Figure out the snorkeling that they brought up. Figure out the other stuff. She just stepped in. She did a ton of stuff. She was working easily as hard, if not harder than me most of the time out there. So I really want to thank her for that. All right, thank you. So as promised, here's your 45-minute Helen Rimfire sermon. But I'm not going to give it to you. What's interesting is that I actually spent time last night when I got home. I wrote up a sermon, and then I'm not doing it. So it's okay. You'll get it later. I'll just find different ways to basically put it out there. But I'm not doing it because I sort of I don't know if some of you have noticed, but we're now at war in another country, and so some of the stuff had popped up, and I kind of went, that's just not really what I want to do. Here's what I want to do. I want to sort of give you sort of 3 points because I don't want this experience to become a what did we do at summer experience, right? There's a reason I bring them up here in front of you. This is for you. It's not just a report. This is so that you can get something out of it. So. Thank you for the lead-in, but as Pastor Eric said, this is all part of, living in the way of Jesus, right? And so, first of all, the first thing I want to talk about, I will talk about one of my experiences briefly, and then I want to talk about the Beatitudes, which you have in your hands, I hope, and then the final sort of message of that. So, as far as my experience goes, I got to do a lot of what they were doing. I was very, very moved. I'm kind of fusing two experiences together. As I said, we went into various apartments to do prayers. The praying that is done with the people that we were praying with, it's not the way that we usually pray here. There's a lot of, some of us do, but there's a lot of laying on hands. There's a lot of sort of, having a translator, being up close and personal with someone who's in obvious distress. That's pretty challenging stuff, right? And we're in an environment that, you look around, you can kind of see why they're in that kind of situation. And one thing I for sure want you to appreciate is that there's nothing wrong with Puerto Rico that couldn't be fixed if we as a nation figured it out. But we don't. So that really made me upset. Because I'm actually sitting here with Christians. I'd be upset if they weren't Christians. But I'm with Christians, and they are suffering, and we as a nation are not doing what we need to do. And that is a very tough situation to be in. So I'm praying for this lady. One of them was as surely, I'm pretty sure she was towards the end of her journey with cancer. And I'm trying to sort of I don't, as a youth pastor, I don't usually pray, I'm praying with them, but it's not that same kind of prayer. And what I want you guys to understand about praying, at least what the wisdom I kind of picked up from that, is that praying, there is a possibility that, praying, of course, can maybe perhaps change outwardly, but I think prayer, more importantly to me, it changes inwardly. So as I'm praying with this woman, and I'm having it translated, and the woman's responded, and her daughter is responding, and the people around are responding, and we're all together. For me, the most important part of prayer, even the prayers that are coming up, it's our way to join together in the suffering of others. It's our way for us, our minds and our hearts to be strangely warmed, if you pardon the Methodist reference, but for us to basically join in together with the person, experience their humanity and experience what God is doing in their humanity. So anyway, for me, I've obviously, I'm a minister, so I've done plenty of praying before, but I'm just saying that in this case, there's some really moving moments for them and for me, and I wanted to sort of share that with you, that it's okay if you're in a praying situation, you're not super comfortable with the way it's being done. I would just lean in and see what does that prayer do for you. How does that impact your heart? You guys have got your Bibles, right? I got you at the Beatitudes section. What I want you to do is I want you to notice, just first of all, look at the Beatitudes. Look at them. These, John Wesley had described them as the central ethic to the Christian faith. And it drives me crazy that people want the Ten Commandments posted up everywhere, but they are not posting up this. And in fact, we have, sadly, a group of Christians that actually don't want to even acknowledge that these exist, right? But this is the central spine of Jesus' ethics. And I'm thinking as Christians, and we're trying to follow Jesus and living in the way of Jesus, we should be paying attention to that. All I want you to do, maybe right now, maybe when you get home, is just look and see which are the ones that you're most comfortable with and which are the ones that you are not. Because it does speak a little bit to where you are. And it's okay, there's no judgment here. Just, what are you more comfortable with? I had some wonderful conversations with the youth about what it means, what it means to be meek, right? Or mercy. Or is it the translate hopeless, grieve? By the way, I got to say, I'm sure most of us have known this as blessed are those that, right? And so this is a different translation, so I kind of had trouble with that. But either way, that's what I want you to notice there. Just take a moment, that's in your sermon notes, by the way, to sort of say, just think, what are the ones that speak more to you and to your heart? The other thing I'm going to say is, notice this is happy are people who are, right? Christianity is very much of a social religion. We rise and fall together as a people. It's not a person. I totally get, and there's space for this in my theology. There's space of your own personal relationship with Jesus. I absolutely get that. I think that's important, especially in some other ministry context, but I think it's important anyway. Your personal relationship with the Christ that loves you is super important. What's important to me and what I was experiencing out in Puerto Rico and what I experience here, when I think about what's happening here, when I think about friends of mine that are here that are scared to go out of their house, that are scared their Medicaid's going to get cut off, that are scared that somebody's going to come and take them from their families. People here, when I think about people here at Advent that have these similar fears, the purpose of church is us as a people. So the suffering of someone in the distant place of Puerto Rico shouldn't be as separate as we tend to make it. And it isn't separate, because as I said, I have, good friends of mine, even in ministry, even ministers that are being impacted by what's going on out there right now. And as a nation and as a church, we have to do better. And the last thing I'm going to say, I'll cut it there. The last thing I'm going to say is this. I think the whole thing can be basically summed up like this, right? I was finding a lot of problems when I was talking to some well-meaning Christians, and they're doing the work. They really are doing the work. They're reading the Bible. They're doing the praying. They're doing mission work. These are well-meaning people, and I would argue they have good hearts. They have good hearts. And I see such a disconnect between the theology coming out of their mouth and the actions that they are actually doing. I see such a disconnect. And I'm not talking about the great scale. I could talk about that, but I'm even talking just even this week. And I think the Christian message, ultimately, is that if you don't love your neighbor, you don't love God. You can't love your neighbor and not, you can't love God and then not love your neighbor. And that's not the scripture today, that's more from the Good Samaritan. But the point is, it's all over the place there. You cannot love your neighbor and not love God. You cannot not love God and love your neighbor. I've blown it. Anyway, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. It's the central message of almost all of our sermons, ultimately. But I'm surprised, when I'm talking to some well-meaning Christian, and they're wonderful and they're beautiful, and then all of a sudden this stuff comes out. I'm going, where's that coming from? Are you reconciling that at all with the scriptures that you're reading, with the prayers that we're praying, with the songs that we're singing? Are you reconciling that? And it was just so raw for me at Puerto Rico when I was talking to some people, and I didn't get it. I mean, if you love God you don't have to demand an apology from someone else. If you love God, you obviously are not stealing from someone else. If you love God, you're not, sniping at them in advance. Like if you, and it's not ours. Our group were perfect, right? But what I'm saying is that, and I'm not necessarily even talking about the other groups. I've seen it all over the place, right? So that's the deal here. I think the central ethic, I mean, the Beatitudes are a longer version of the ethic, but the central ethic is if you don't love your neighbor, you don't love God. Amen.